but I'm happy to be here with you. I'm especially happy to be in St. Petersburg in Pinellas County on the morning and the afternoon after Matt Garza threw a no-hitter yesterday. I only got to see one of the World Series games the Rays had. My son, who some of you know is in the military, is a captain in the Army, was home. And I got tickets to go to the one game they won. I just regret I didn't go to the rest of them, so we need another World Series, and then I'm going to be able to go to them, and at least I hope I get to. Let me tell you a little bit about a couple of things that, first of all, are really fundamental to what I'm doing now as your Attorney General, and yet they relate very much to this race. There are two things that are going on at the present moment. A few days ago, some of you may be aware that I joined Michigan and a couple other states in filing a brief in defense of the Arizona immigration law against President Obama's attack. That brief is a very important brief because it's about the constitutional question that's in that lawsuit and what President Obama is trying to do there that's very much related to the health care lawsuit that I'm also engaged in. If you think about our Constitution and the way our Founding Fathers designed it, they listed certain enumerated powers. The rest of those powers were reserved to the states. They didn't give everything to the federal government. In the Arizona case, and by the way, I do support the Arizona immigration law, some people question that, but I do. But anyway, the issue is law here, not the question of policy. In that particular law, the question that's being challenged in the suit is over the police power we states have. Do the states have the power to enforce not only state law, but federal laws? And I believe, and Michigan believes, and the other states do, that the Founding Fathers left inherent police powers in our states. We choose what laws we enforce or we don't. The police make those decisions. The federal government doesn't. In this case, President Obama is suing to say the states have no right to enforce federal laws, in this case, the immigration law. I think we're going to win that lawsuit. The second lawsuit is the one I mentioned. It's been some time ago now, but I'm proud of the fact that 19 other states' attorneys generals and governors joined me in a lawsuit filed in the Northern District of Florida that we filed to have President Obama, the Obamacare health care legislation, declared unconstitutional. Now, I think we're going to win that. It's a ways away from that, but it's about the same type of thing. It's enumerated powers. The individual mandate, the provision in this bill that says you're just out, sitting in front of your TV set or at a political meeting or wherever you are, you're not engaged in any activity, you're not buying anything, not selling anything, just talking to your friends, maybe all by yourself. Whatever you're doing, you're not doing anything in commerce that you and I think of as being commerce. And yet, the government, the federal government, is telling you that you have to buy a product, in this case an insurance policy, or you're going to pay a penalty. And I think that's wrong, and my fellow attorneys generals and governors who've joined in this suit also think it's wrong because there's no place in the Constitution that grants Congress the power to do that. Now, there may be some liberals, and there certainly are at least 4 of them on the Supreme Court, who are going to argue that the Commerce Clause is totally elastic, that it can cover absolutely everything you do or don't do, that anything just sitting still in your chair affects everybody else, like in healthcare. They're going to argue that. That is what they argue. And I think that is not at all possible because the Founding Fathers never intended the federal government to have that kind of reach. They never intended the federal government to control everything in our lives, to be able to usurp the powers from the states. And I believe we'll win this lawsuit on that grounds alone. But the other part of the lawsuit that's important affects the state and state government. 27% of Florida's budget today goes to Medicaid. That's health care for the poor, at least it was. It's been raised up quite a bit beyond the poverty level now. In fact, this new provision in federal law that is in effect, when it's fully enforced, is going to raise it up, I think, to 138% of poverty level to make anybody eligible. That's a family making $45,000 or more or something like that a year. I may be off a figure or two. But the point is that the states, years ago, decided they were going to agree. I'm not sure why. We all agreed in different agreements, but we agreed with the federal government that we would administer the federal Medicaid program and that we would contribute a significant portion of the money that goes to the recipients. And that's why the 27%. Even without the Obamacare, even without this health care bill that was passed last year, the percentage of the state budget is going up into the 30%. Some say as high as 36% over the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. With Obamacare, it can go well above 35 or 36%. It may be 40%. Some even project it's going to go as high as 50%. The point is that how do we do education? How do we spend the money we need to spend on foster care? How do we do what we have to do to house prisoners, the state prison system? How do we do the other things of government if you have Washington commanding that the states spend this much of their assets and their resources on one program, a federal program called Medicaid, and they never asked us if we'd agree to do this extension and add billions of dollars more to the cost and millions of more people to the rolls. The truth of the matter is they did not ask. And they didn't ask, and that, in my way of thinking, and my fellow colleagues in this, is a violation of the 10th Amendment. It's a commandeering of state assets, and we should win on that basis alone. Now, there are a lot of other problems with that big health care bill. It's a big power grab. You know, when I ran for Congress a few years ago, the first time, I had Northern Pinellas in my district. And I campaigned saying, elect me. I'm not running, by the way, for Congress. I'm running for governor. But I just want to give you a perspective on this. I said, elect me. I want to go to Washington with Ronald Reagan and reduce the size and scope of the federal government. We should be reducing the tax on capital gains right now, not increasing it. And that's what I campaigned on at that point in time. We should be cutting the corporate tax today instead of what they're doing in Washington, so we let our exports grow. We should be reducing the regulatory burden on small businesses so they will grow, and we should be reducing the unfunded mandates or eliminating them on state and local governments. But President Obama is doing just the opposite. And in the Obamacare bill, and this big health care bill, it's the biggest grab of all. It's the biggest redistribution of the wealth. I'm one of those who believes that we should be growing wealth, not redistributing it. But President Obama seems to think otherwise. So what does that have to do with running for governor? Well, it has everything to do with running for governor. It has everything to do with the principle of where are we going to go and how am I going to govern and what are we looking at and facing as a state. Ingrid and I have been married 38 years, my wife and I. Bernie McCabe, Barbara Sheen Todd, you all know me, Jack Latvala, a number of you in this room a long time. Ingrid and I have been married 38 years. We have 3 sons. We have 2 grandsons. We have another one on the way since I last was at Tiger Bay. And this election's about them. It's about our children and our grandchildren and your grandchildren and making Florida a better place for them. In order to do that, despite what's happening in Washington, which is creating a horrible economic climate, we're going to have to face the realities we have today and make some fundamental changes in how we do business as a state. We've been dependent all too long on travel and tourism and agriculture. As your next governor, I'm going to do everything I can to promote both of those industries, but I'll tell you what we need. We need diversity. We've talked about it a lot, but we don't have it the way we need it today. We need to have more biotech and high-tech and aerospace industry. We need to expand what we're doing, and we need to lure businesses to come here, businesses to move their headquarters, businesses to move their production facilities, businesses that will give us the opportunity for permanent jobs in industries that we all need to have. So when our children graduate from the colleges and universities here, they have a job. They don't have to go to Atlanta or somewhere else for that job. And so we'll have the revenue base, so that education can be improved and so on. But it's a chicken and the egg. How do we get there? How do we get to a place where we can grow our own small businesses that come out of our universities? Where do we get the capital we need to have to get them started and get them on their way, which we don't have? We're just not competitive today with Texas and Mississippi and even Alabama and Georgia. The way we do that, I have a plan. It's up on my website, billmccallum.com. I have a plan I worked out with Steve Forbes that would produce for Florida 500,000, 500,000 new jobs over the next 6 years. And it's greatly detailed there. It involves the reduction of the corporate income tax. It involves the elimination of the sales tax on certain high-tech equipment for biotech and high-tech and aerospace industries. It involves reducing the regulatory burden on our state small businesses. We have to have some regulation, but certainly don't want to have all we have today by any means. We may not be California and New York, but we're pretty bad off in Florida. I don't know if we're 5th or 20th, but we're pretty high in that regard. It also involves dramatically improving our public education system, our schools, our colleges, our universities. And it involves having meaningful, significant lawsuit or litigation reform. We're not competitive when we have the highest medical malpractice insurance premiums in Florida of any state in the union. And we look around and we see our young people who graduate from medical schools, who go to do their residencies, and then they look where they're going to go practice medicine, and not enough of them are choosing Florida. We have a shortage of doctors. That shortage is growing. And the #1 reason they give why they don't choose Florida is high malpractice insurance premiums. And that's not just about a question of having doctors for my 95-year-old dad, or for your children, or yourself, or your grandchildren. It's about doing business here. We have to get our act together in all of these areas. We have to be able to demonstrate to them that we know what we're doing, and it requires leadership to do that. And that's why I'm running for governor, because I've got a plan to do that. Now, I've got a fellow running against me who spent $25 million of his own money, $10 million of his wife's, I think, now in an ECO. He's running ads every day. His background, as the introducer pointed out, is somewhat suspect. You know, he ran Columbia HCA, as she said, when he was responsible for the largest, the most massive fraud against senior citizens in U.S. history, perhaps the largest. I think it is the largest, maybe close to it. And that is a Medicare ripoff. I don't think people realize that, but you think about it for a minute. Medicare is senior citizens' money. It's your money, too. It's taxpayers' money. But he was condoning, or at least permitting, the upcoding that is charging more for every one of these services in over 50 hospitals that they rated, the FBI did, in the tenure he was there, charging more than they were supposed to, again and again and again. And he was denying people, as hospitals were, the right that they're legally entitled to go to his emergency rooms if they weren't qualified at the moment with some kind of insurance. That was wrong. And he says, I made a mistake. I'll take responsibility. He wants to hold the state accountable. That's what he's campaigning on. He says, I will make the state government accountable, like I did as a businessman. Did he hold Columbia HCA accountable? He's willing to blame other people, say, I didn't know, I made a mistake. I don't know if he knew or not, but there's certainly a lot of evidence that would indicate it's highly unlikely he wasn't aware of this massive activity going on. And I would suggest to you, whether he did or not, he didn't run his company competently. Then how can he be competent to run the fourth largest state in the Union, Florida, as its governor? And that's the issue that we're facing today. You know me. Most of you do. Some of you met me for the first time today, but most of you know me. I have a record. My record's clear. I've been in Congress. I've been the Attorney General. You know where I stand. I'm a Ronald Reagan conservative. I've got a complete record of where that is. I understand that people are angry about those who say one thing during a campaign and they do something different later. I not only am a conservative campaigning that way, I'll govern that way. In the case of Rick Scott, who's running, all you know are his slick ads. He pays a lot of money for those ads. What he's saying, which are not most of the time true about me, there are a lot of lies in there. I don't have the money to always rebut. And you know that he also did not run a company competently and may very well have been, in fact probably was, involved in the activity that went on there, whether he was charged criminally personally or not. That was a $1.7 billion criminal fine that was paid by Columbia HCA for what happened on his watch. So I think as you choose your next governor, it isn't just policy that's important. It's not just policy. That is very, very important. But it's also leadership, character, and integrity. We need a governor that can govern. This race isn't about me. It's not about an individual. It's about our children and our grandchildren. It's about where our state's going to go. I'm deeply disappointed when I see all this television ads and very little talk about what's going to happen in Florida. Now, I got a few more things I can do with this campaign the next 4 weeks, and we're going to win. The election is much closer in our polls that we've taken the last few days because people are beginning to pay attention. They're beginning to look and say, who is this guy, Scott? And then they're beginning to remember who I am. And while some may prefer an outsider, they really are looking for a conservative. They're looking for somebody who's going to say, I'm going to go to Tallahassee just like we'd like people to go to Washington, and we're going to make this course change that we need to make. We're going to govern conservatively. We're going to reduce the tax burden. I proposed a freeze of local taxes for 2 years. I know what I'm doing with that. I know it's tough on local governments to do that, but look at what Mr. Scott's proposed. Some gimmicks in his plan that won't do that, but you look at what I'm doing, and what we're doing is creating the climate to grow jobs, to grow business, to produce a change in our state that's absolutely long and overdue. And I believe the voters will finally make that decision when they go to the voting booth, when they punch that ballot, wherever it is, and however way they may mark it, electronically or by absentee, and they're going to vote for Bill McCollum. I'm going to win this election this fall. Thank you very, very much for allowing me to come and talk to you.